What is up everyone, Parox here, and today we're taking a look at the Mäuschen, the Tier 9 German heavy tank that is going to be replacing the VK4502B in patch 9.9. So if we go ahead into the tech tree here, you'll see there's the Mäuschen right before the mouse, right after the VK4502A, and it does cost 168,720 XP to research, along with 3.6 million credits to purchase. You do have two gun options on this tank, an 128 millimeter and an 150 millimeter. This is kind of like the gun on the E100, and this one, same gun on the mouse and on the E75. So speaking of the E75, you know, how does it line up to the Mäuschen? Because they are both Tier 9 German heavy tanks. Well, this thing is massive and slow. It has a top speed of 20 kilometers an hour, whereas the E75 has a top speed of 40 kilometers an hour. So it is already 20 kilometers slower than the E75. And in my opinion, what makes a good tank is its ability to relocate around the map and be as many places at once kind of as you possibly can just by using that mobility. So already a strike against the Mäuschen. It's slow, but it does make up for that in armor. Its hull, compared to the E75, has 40 more millimeters of armor at the front. It has 60 more millimeters of armor at the sides, and has 30 more millimeters of armor at the rear, and this is compared to the E75. Now, one thing that I thought was interesting was that the front of the turret on the Mäuschen, compared to the front of the turret on the E75, is weaker. So this turret front has 12 less millimeters of armor than the E75. But on the side, it has 40 more millimeters, and on the rear, it has 15. So overall, it's so much stronger in the armor department compared to the E75. But the E75, its commander's hatch, you know, kind of small. This tank's, oh boy, look how gigantic that is. Like, you would have to be really bad not to hit that, or just have lag or bad internet or something, because that thing sticks out like a sore thumb. And that's really one of the big weaknesses to this tank. Apart from the lower plate, that's also a big weak point on the mouse, is that middle lower plate there. And that weak point exists on the Mäuschen. Now, this tank gets an 128 millimeter, just like the E75 does. And you see, can't even bring it up because it's the exact same gun, except on the Mäuschen, it gets 3.43 rounds per minute, and on the E75 it gets 3.82. So the gun is worse on the Mäuschen. And also, let's see, it has 0.42 dispersion, 3.3 second aim time. And on the E75, it has 0.38 and 2.9 second aim time. So the gun is significantly better on the E75 compared to on the Mäuschen. And also, the gun can perform better on the E75 because it beats the Mäuschen in turret traverse by 4 degrees a second and hull traverse by 14 degrees a second. So the E75 can get the gun around faster than this tank can. So, you know, it's a Tier 9, so you'd think upgrading to the Tier 10 would be a lot better. Well, it kind of isn't. I mean, look at the armor here. Let's pull up the vehicle details for the mouse and the Mäuschen and compare their armor. The gun is pretty much exactly the same. The gun gets a little bit better on the mouse. You can see it gets 4 rounds a minute, and it has 3.43 on the Mäuschen. The hull armor and the turret armor are exactly the same on the front of the mouse as compared to the Tier 9 tank. The mouse only gets 5 more millimeters of hull armor on the side and 10 more millimeters of hull armor on the rear. And onto the turret, it gets 10 more millimeters on the side, but it does get 35 more on the rear. So, yeah, you know, it's great, I guess. I mean, it's not really much of an improvement going to the mouse. And the Mäuschen isn't really that good itself. But what it also gets is an 150 millimeter that's on the E100. But as you can see, looking at the shell types, there's no heat ammo. So you have to fire 225 millimeters of penetration AP or HE that only gets 85 millimeters. So, you know, it can be good in certain situations. Like, here's what I found with the Mäuschen. If you're top tier, you're going to dominate lower tier tanks because they just can't get through this armor. And you have the possibility of shooting them for 750 damage every 18 seconds. And that's also one of the downsides for this 150 millimeter. Where is it at? Ready to fire. 2.49. So that's kind of bad. 0.48. That's also, you know, not the best. And 3.5 second aim time. Actually, I'm just curious. I want to see how the gun performs on the E100. Wow, 0.4 dispersion on the E100, 0.48 on the Mäuschen. Also, its aim time is better by 0.6 seconds. So, you know, Mäuschen, pretty much, it is worse than the E75 gun. The gun is much worse on the mouse, but I mean, something has to get better, right? So I think because the tank has to improve as you move up a tier, they had to make this tank pretty crap. And that's just my opinion of it. You know, if you really like heavy tanks and you enjoy the slow, lumbering, bounce lots of shots kind of tanks, then, you know, this might be for you, but it's definitely not for me. I did have a couple of good games, one with the derp gun and one with the 128. So we're gonna take a look at those now. All right, so here we are on South Coast. Now this is a top tier game. There's me, a bunch of other Mäuschens on the other team, and then there's some tier 8s, some tier 7s. So this is going to be a pretty good matchup for the 150, considering it only has 225 millimeters of penetration. But that should be good enough to go through the lower plate weak spot on this tank and the other tier 8s and tier 7s. So I decided that I want to be super aggressive since I am in the top tier and just push straight up. It gets stuck in and start doing some damage. So I am going to choose to head down to this little valley area. I know usually a lot of light tanks and medium tanks like to congregate down here, especially from the other spawn. So I'm going to see what kind of work I can do on those guys. I do spot that T-30, but I don't want to worry about him right now. I'm just hoping he comes around this corner. I do set up to side scrape against him, but it doesn't look like he's going to come out. That's kind of unfortunate. And here we're going to see one of the weak parts to this tank, that giant commander's hatch I was talking about. I do get a nice shot on that guy, and then the T-30 does come around and shoot me. Look at that, one shell into the cupola. I repair my commander. Well, repair people, yes, that makes sense. And then another shot goes right in as well. Killing my commander for the second time in a row, and those heat shells on that Spa Panzer just go right through the commander's hatch of this tank. So it looks like those two little lights are reloading, so I'm going to pull her up and try to get a shot on this T-30. I'm aiming down at his lower plate just because I have to really be careful where I'm aiming these shells, since it is a low penetration gun. Kind of for tier 9, it's not the best. I do angle there, and he bounces a shot off me. And you know, even though there's lots of premium ammo being spammed on the test server, and there's lots of weak spots on this tank, if people don't know where to aim, the armor can hold up really well. I'm kind of hesitating going forward here by this T-30, but it looks like he just fired. I want to get a nice shot on this AMX CDC, though. I know I can penetrate him for sure. Alright, it doesn't look like I'll get a shot on him, so I'm just going to pull forward and try to go up and attack that M103. Yep, I finally decided to give up on the CDC, and I'm just going to push forward, keeping the aggression up. And that's what I'm going to do the entire game, really try to push the tempo here, because since this tank is so slow, you don't really want to be caught in the back and playing catch up the entire game. Now he does track me here. I do kind of a stupid thing. I wait till it's almost repaired and then fix the track. I don't know. I guess I was just anxious to unload an 150mm shell into him. Alright, so there's one bounce from him, and he tracked me, so that's 2 shells from his gun that haven't done any damage to my tank. So that's pretty good. And I'm aiming, and I'm aiming. There's a 3rd shell that didn't do damage. I have no idea how that penned the side of his tank. It looked like that was a pretty good angle on his part. And there's a 4th shell from him that hasn't penned me. So, you know, if I was in another tier 9, maybe a T54 or an AMX 5120, those probably would have penned the 54 maybe, but definitely would have penned the 5120. And that's really only the major upside to this tank is the armor, but if you want some armor, E75 works just as well. It has a strong front, especially if you get hauled down and you can side scrape well out with that tank. Not as well as side scraping with this tank, but I guess the E75 has to have some sort of downside against this tank. Although there isn't many downsides, because this tank sucks. Now, while these games were good, there were few and far between. I've played a lot of games with the Mäuschen, and I've only had a couple of good games. Most of the time, they were frustrating because I couldn't get anywhere, and when I did, my shots either bounced or went into the tracks. So that was fun. And with the 128, I tried to like shoot AP or shoot a regular ammo loadout that I would have on the regular server, because I just didn't want to be one of those premium spamming people. I wanted to actually test out the tank for how I would play it if I had it. So you see that shot on the Mäuschen back there, his tracks ate it. So now I'm almost reloaded, and I'm going to aim in onto the side of this guy's turret. It dips low and goes into, looks like, the front of his hull. That kind of sucked, but what are you expecting with .48 accuracy? It's almost as bad as the KV2. Not really, but it's up there. Alright, so I was going to pull out, but then I decided that was a bad idea since that Mäuschen was there and the other one was around the corner. So even though he's kind of angled, I'm still aiming for the lower plate to see if it can pen, and it looks like it goes through just fine. So that's reassuring. At least it can pen itself. I know there are some tanks that can't even pen itself, and it's really funny. I am side scraping on this wall, anticipating that that one with 656 HP is going to come around and try to shoot me. Looks like he's slinging HE at that M103 though. Doesn't look like I have a shot on that one, so I am going to pull back a little more and go for another shot on this guy. Apparently my shell either hit the ground or didn't actually go through that little statue. I don't know. Oh well, only another 19 seconds before I can shoot again. Yay. And when I am reloaded, I'm going to pull up and try to take out this one who's on 676 HP. And while the accuracy is bad, if you let it aim all the way in, you can pull up close range shots like this. Goodbye. Now there's just this guy left. I doubt I'll be able to reload in time before he's dead. And there he goes. Now let's take a look at some 128mm gameplay. Alright, so here we are on Pearl River. I skipped the beginning of the map just because I wanted to save you guys the pain and suffering from watching me move from the cap circle to this location, because it did take about 2 minutes. So I chose to go to the middle because I thought maybe I could bully some of their medium tanks. It didn't quite work out that way, and I probably should have gone 8 and 9 line, but those are some pretty hefty, strong tanks that are over there, so who knows if I would have been able to penetrate them. Now, the AP rounds on this tank have 246mm of penetration, and the APCR has 311mm. I pull around to try to get another shot off onto this T62A. He puts one into my track, so I'll fix that just to get out of there and to prevent him from perma-tracking me. Now, he's probably running away since the 183 is coming up. So what me and this 183 are going to do is push down this this little alleyway into the enemies that are down there, the T125, I7, and Mouse. And hopefully I'll be able to do some work on those heavy tanks. Even though they're tier 10s, I'm kind of like a tier 10 because this tank is almost as good as the mouse. So it's like a tier 10, but it's not. It still kind of sucks because the mouse also kind of sucks. But yeah, you know. Alright, so I'm going to head down here around this bend to try to get the sides and the rears of these tier 10 heavies that are down here. And it does look like I have a Waffle 4 backing me up. So I'm going to come around this corner. Not really paying attention. E5 is there, bounces heat off me, and I'll finish him off. I did load some APCR just to make sure that I was penetrating these tanks down here because I really need to in order for us to have a chance of winning. So I'm going to slowly roll on, and the Waffle's going to come behind me, and same with the 183. Alright, so coming around this corner here, IS-7 and mouse both there. I do bounce the IS-7 shot, and the mouse decides to kill the Waffle. Alright, so now it's a standoff. Mini mouse versus the big mouse. Who will win? It's probably going to be me, considering I have a 183 backing me up, and he bounced his first shell off me, and I penned mine. And the 183 did an added 1150 damage, so that helps out a little bit. And me and him were just trying to out-angle each other, I guess. And it looked like that one went straight through my lower plate. I do put one into his side, though. And he bounces another one off me. So, I mean, even though this tank is bad in a lot of respects, it still has some pretty okay armor if you know how to angle and hope that the enemies aren't shooting premium at you. He does pen me there. Looks like that might have gone through my commander's hatch. And I will take him out. He backs up, try to avoid my shot, and I put one into his lower plate. Looks like the Artie had it out for me there. I mean, why would you not aim for a slow, gigantic box? Alright, so me and the 183 are going to continue down this way and try to defend our base. It's not going to work out too well for us, though, mainly because we're the only two tanks. They have two Artie, and I'm a giant box just waiting to be shot at. Now, once I go out here, the only other kill that I'm going to get is on their artillery. And that's going to be it for this 128mm gun game. But it is kind of nice being able to actually have somewhat of an accurate gun whenever getting those long-range shots. And this tank, I keep saying this tank. This gun on this tank has about 15-second reload, so it is worse than the E75 too, but it's better than about 19, but not really that much better. I don't really know what to say. I mean, the 150mm is good in some respects, but then this one's good in others. And that's going to be my last kill of this game. Alright, so what did we learn about this tank? I learned that it is too slow to really be super useful on the battlefield, except for pushing flanks or camping around a corner and preventing enemies from coming through. I also learned that the 128mm sucks a lot with its kind of 15-second reload. It's too long of a reload for only about 490 damage every shot. And also the 150mm just isn't really viable unless you're top tier, because it doesn't get any heat ammo to deal with those higher armored tanks at tier 10. So, I mean, this tank kind of sucks. It's good for holding flanks and pushing flanks, I guess, but that's pretty much it. So, if you have the VK4502B right now, I mean, it's going to be a real struggle if you're not all the way through it, if you wanted to get the mouse. And this tank is going to be a very much disappointment to you whenever 9.9 comes around. So that's kind of unfortunate, but me, I never had a VK, so it's going to be kind of nice being able to actually pen the front of the new German Tier 9 heavy tank. But anyways, guys, if you've enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. I'll see you next time.